Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Sarita Sandosham, and I'm the Executive Director for Heartland Alliance International. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all to our Power of Healing event, celebrating the extraordinary vision of the Marjorie Kovler Center and the transformational healing and justice that Heartland Alliance International brings across the globe through that vision. For those of you who might be unfamiliar with our organization, we are global, and we address some of the world's most complex human rights abuses by ensuring survivors and their families have an opportunity to heal, access justice, and rebuild their lives with dignity. We implement programs across 9 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, the Middle East, Sub-Saharan Africa, and in Chicago at the Marjorie Kovler Center. Our programs cut across a broad range of issues, including torture, human trafficking, forced displacement, stigma-free, gender-sensitive healthcare, and sexual violence. Our expertise is rooted in practices that began with the Marjorie Kovler Center, which includes trauma-informed mental health and psychosocial support, and also access to justice and legal aid. Throughout tonight's program, we'll travel around the world to hear incredible stories of survival, courage, and empowerment, stories that I know will inspire empathy and compassion, and more importantly, action to change lives. The experiences that you're going to learn about will break down barriers and connect us through our shared humanity. Please remember that you can easily donate online or text POH give to 71777 to give directly in support of our work to ensure healing and justice for all. And before we embark on our global mission tour, I want to thank our many supporters who have made this event possible. To our sponsors, Judy and Peter Bloom Kovler Foundation, the ARVD Foundation, a local family foundation, and Dr. Mary Fabry and Dr. David Goldberg. I share our sincerest gratitude for your continued commitment. Thank you also to our incredible network of dedicated and passionate volunteers and staff. It is through community that we are successful. And thanks to all of you for tuning in tonight. I hope you've been moved to take action by joining us in our fight to end torture worldwide and to support all of our survivors in their journey to access healing and justice. And now I have the great pleasure of introducing the story of the Marjorie Kovler Center.
About 35 years ago, I saw an item in the Washington Post about a clinic for survivors of torture in Copenhagen. And I thought to myself, what if we had such a thing in the United States? What a way to approach a humanitarian topic. And must have called 30 or 35 different organizations around the country asking if anyone would be interested in setting up a clinic. Only got really one response. That was Chicago's Heartland Alliance. We just took it a leap of faith. There was some audacity in this. There was no history of clinics for survivors of torture. There was no manual. There's no place to look up anything. You just think this is something that might really help people. My mother died when I was a teenager. I began to think soon after of ways to memorialize someone whose life had been taken when she was pretty young, because she was someone who cared a great deal about the underdog. She cared about people who did not have a voice.
What's really exciting about the Marjorie Kovler Center is that it has helped to inform much of Heartland Alliance's international work in Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America and the Caribbean, and the Middle East and North Africa. And we hope that the work that we do here continues to inform and inspire and motivate the creation of torture treatment centers around the world.
At Heartland Alliance International, we support survivors of torture and trauma through various points of their journey to safety, from responding to forced displacement to propping up humanitarian tents along the migration routes and delivering culturally responsive, gender-sensitive care. We work to ensure healing and justice for all. Now, we will embark on a global mission tour of that healing and justice and hear firsthand from our community in Chicago, Colombia, Nigeria, and Iraq. To kick off our tour, we will begin in Chicago, where it all started more than 30 years ago with a group of survivors of torture from Guatemala. Let me now pass it on to my colleague, Mario Gonzalez.
Thank you, Zurita. My name is Mario Gonzalez, and I am the director of the Marjorie Kovler Center in Chicago. When I started with the Kovler Center more than 30 years ago, I hoped that by now torture and cruel treatment would be a thing of the past. I hoped so deeply that our children and grandchildren would only read about this terrible practice in history books rather in the daily news. However, today we are flooded with horrific images of extreme human rights abuses in just about every corner of our world. We know that torture is meant to break the bonds of community, but the Kovler Center diligently, patiently, and deliberately reveals those bonds through its expert staff, the vast community of volunteers, clinicians, interpreters, and lawyers, and through activities such as cooking group, community gardening, group therapy. It is in community that we experience the power of healing, and it's through community that Heartland Alliance International has achieved tremendous impact. Tonight, I'm humbled to share with you Adriana's journey from victim to survivor and change agent. Adriana was with us during the early days of the Kovler Center, when our community was in pain, recovering from the devastating aftermath of the Guatemalan Civil War. Today, Adriana is an advocate for those who might find themselves in a similar situation. Thank you.
This is my daughter, Glenda, who was 9 years old. This is my daughter, Chawita, who was 10 years old when she was detained and disappeared. When I attend events, I carry them with me. My little sister, Almita. She was exactly this age when she was also detained and disappeared by security forces. You know, people think that time helps with everything, and that the more time goes by, the better you feel, and that it helps to forget. But in cases of disappearances, that is not true. As time goes by, it's even worse. Worse because with time, you lose the hope that you're gonna find them. Kovler saved my life, literally. We had this group that supported each other. We got together to cry, to scream, to let out everything. We're working for each other. I realized that I was learning to be an agent of change. And I have been an agent of change since then. What I want people to know about Kovler is that there is this community of all kinds of healers willing to accompany survivors through the difficult process of learning to live.
Thank you, Mario and Adriana, for sharing your story and resilience with us, and for advocating for others along their journey to healing. My name is Esteban Moreno. I'm the country director for Heartland Alliance International in Colombia. In Colombia, Heartland Alliance International provides innovative, collaborative, and community-based mental health services and legal support to underserved populations. These poor populations have been disproportionately affected by decades of armed conflict and violence, including indigenous people, Afro-Colombian communities, migrants, and refugees. HII's program is rooted in communities' unique context, recognizing their capacity and resources to come together and advocate to overcome adversity as a community as a whole. Our programs work hand in hand with local organizations and community agents, many of them who are survivors themselves. We support them in their journey to healing, empower them to access justice, social services, and ultimately lead the change in their own communities. More than 10 years ago, HII launched its services in Colombia, working with IDPs. Since then, we have expanded our service model to include migrants and refugees from Venezuelans, many of whom are experiencing forced migration, trauma, and exploitation. Hearing Adriana's story, I'm reminded of the situations faced every day by many of our participants who experience ongoing violence, including displacement, homicides, threats, and gender-based violence. Our team in Colombia is inspired by their resilience, and we are driven by the urgency of protecting survivors and advocating for their rights and healing. This mission could not be more important to address persistent injustices and inequalities and work towards a peaceful and safe future for all. Tonight, I am pleased to share this cross-country work with you. Thank you.
En lugares como Quibdó, en Chocó, la oferta de servicios de salud mental es limitada y no cubre la población que requiere atención y que debe estar priorizada, como víctimas del conflicto armado, de violencias basadas en género y personas adultas mayores.
Tenemos un sistema de salud con dificultades, limitaciones para ofrecer servicios de salud mental a toda la población.
Aprender a cuidar la salud mental ha sido un desafío que estas comunidades vienen reforzando con prácticas tradicionales transferidas de generación en generación.
Con esta medicina me levantó mi mamá, me levantó mi papá, entonces eso se las dejo a los hijos se las dejan a los hijos de ellos, a los nietos, bisnietos y todo.
Entre marimbas, tambores, tejidos y medicinas tradicionales, las comunidades afrocolombianas e indígenas han probado el poder de estas prácticas para el tratamiento de enfermedades físicas y mentales.
A veces tejo, a veces pinto, todas esas cositas les sirven emocionalmente y de pronto económicamente también.
Una de esas prácticas es el uso ancestral de plantas medicinales, que en el Pacífico colombiano está estrechamente ligado a su cultura.
Ellos siguen fieles a sus tradiciones culturales y en ese sentido es muy importante para ellos poder conservar estas prácticas de medicina tradicional, sus propias formas para abordar o mantener su salud mental.
Gracias al apoyo de ACNUR, acompañamos a varios grupos comunitarios en el barrio La Victoria de Quibdó.
El proyecto en La Victoria se está implementando a partir de un diagnóstico donde se identificaron las necesidades de salud mental y apoyo psicosocial que tenía la comunidad. A partir de ese diagnóstico surge este proyecto con el ánimo de fortalecer la integración social y mejorar el acceso a servicios de salud mental y apoyo psicosocial en la comunidad.
Estas expresiones artísticas, deportivas y ancestrales deben ser fortalecidas para que sigan siendo usadas en favor del bienestar psicosocial de toda la comunidad.
Nos dimos cuenta que el saber es de todos que no solamente hace parte de un grupo de personas o un grupo de edad, sino que todos pueden compartir algo.
My name is Reeb Miligi, and I'm the project director of the Counter Human Trafficking for Heartland Alliance International in Nigeria. Tonight, I'm delighted to welcome you to Nigeria, where HAI is working in Northeast Nigeria on a counter human trafficking project funded by JTIP. The project started in 2018 and is running till 2022. It aims to provide technical assistance to government agents and civil society organizations to address gaps in identification and protection for victims of trafficking and understand and apply international legal frameworks. Within the project, we cooperate with various agencies and government offices to support survivors. And in other cases, we cooperate with other HI offices based in other countries to facilitate the services and the support for survivors of trafficking. Additionally to the work in the Northeast, HAI in Nigeria has delivered the longest-running comprehensive healthcare program in the country and evolved to include access to justice for criminalized populations, sexual and reproductive health for vulnerable girls and women. When I started with HAI in the summer of 2020, one of the things that struck me about was the HIV program, was working in a country that does not allow or recognize LGBTQ rights. This cruel and inhumane reality makes accessing healthcare and other social services nearly impossible for LGBTQ individuals, making HAI's work in Nigeria especially challenging when our participants are arrested and placed in discriminatory legal system. HAI is there on the front lines, responding to their urgent needs. And now it's my honor, as both an ally and an advocate, to present Paul, a man in a country that criminalizes who he is for whom he loves. Thank you.
Growing up, when I was bullied, I felt very bad. Sometimes this thought comes to me, can I just change who I am? It got very bad that sometimes I try to walk as a man, which it gets very hard when trying to walk like a man, and sometimes I'm just tired. I'm like, what is it? Let me just be myself, you know? And it worked. So that's how it has been growing up, being gay in Nigeria.
The truth about it is, if you belong to one of these key population community, that's the female sexual worker, the men who have sex with men, or the people who inject drugs, you just feel lonely. You feel like it's as if you don't exist, even when you're breathing and you know you exist, but it's that non-existence. It's just there. You're just on your own, and you're in a different planet where nobody to turn to. And that's why you always take the only option that is left, which is what? Take your life and get out.
Heartland have helped me to be able to stand out in whatever situation I find myself due to the several trainings I've attended in Cross River and outside Cross River. So I've gathered a lot of knowledge so as to impact on others. So Heartland has taught me a lot. So we in the Heartland community have tried to educate the young ones not to be afraid, but also stand heads up and be able to defend themselves anytime.
We have to create more awareness. We have to do much sensitization. We have to let our community know that a gay person has equal rights with every other person. We are not supposed to be denied from job because you're known as a gay person. We are not supposed to be denied from fellowship You're not supposed to be denied from your society just because you're known as a gay person. Much sensitization has to be done so that people will know that a gay person is a natural person like every other person.
You see, when you're talking to them, you see this relief from them and they're like, wow, I've learned a lot. Thank God I came here.
Just relating and...
Paul is one of our strong outreach workers, who also now takes HIV prevention services to community members, where they live, where they are, providing access to HIV counseling and testing services, providing access to commodities, and also, helping those who are also HIV positive to find, their way, to the one-stop shop where they get treated for HIV. So he serves as a very strong bridge.
شكرا لك ريم. مرحبا مرة أخرى. اسمي فرح كاظم. أنا موظف قانوني ومحامي حقوق الإنسان لدى منظمة هارتلاند ألاينس الدولية في العراق. يسعدني جدا أن أشارك عمل منظمة هارتلاند في المنطقة. في بداية الأمر عندما التقيت بالموظفين المحليين والشركاء المشتركين في العراق شعرت بإلهام شديد من قوة تلك المجتمعات التي تعمل جنبا إلى جنب على الرغم من تعرضهم للتهديدات المستمرة لأنفسهم ولعائلاتهم ومن نرافقهم في رحلتهم للشفاء من الصدمة التي تعرضوا لها بسبب تنظيم الدولة الإسلامية. إن عمق المعرفة المشترك والعلاقات المتجددة والقيادة وحب العمل أمر مهم. لا تعيش كل من المجتمعات الأزيدية والآشورية والكلدانية في عزلة، بل إنهم نسيج من مجتمع واسع النطاق ودوائر ملهمة من الأصدقاء وأفراد الأسر الذين يساعدونهم من أجل وصول إلى خدماتهم الأساسية. فما كان من دورنا إلا الوقوف إلى جانبهم من أجل العمل إلى إعادة دمجهم في المجتمع مرة أخرى. وكوني موظفا قانوني لدى منظمة إنسانية قمت بالانضمام إلى منظمات أخرى من أجل إقرار قانون حماية الأزيديين من العنف ولأجل محاربة العنف والتطرف. كذلك عملت على مشروع قانون الإتجار بالبشر الذي كانت هناك الكثير من الحالات التي تعرضوا للعنف والاضطهاد وإجبار العمل بالقوة، وما كان منا إلا قيامنا بالتمثيل القانوني لهم وتحريرهم ومحاربة المتاجرين بهم. لا يمكن أن أنسى أيضا عملي فيما يخص عدالة الأحداث والأطفال الذين تم اعتقالهم على تهم لم يقوموا بارتكابها وإنما أجبروا على الاعتراف بتلك التهم نتيجة قيامهم بالتحقيق وإجبارهم على الاعتراف بتلك التهم. فما كان مني إلى تحقيق العدالة لهم والتمثيل القانوني لهم وتقديم الدعم الكامل لهم. أنا أرى أن هذا العمل مهم جدا كون أن الأطفال وعدالة الأحداث هم مستقبل القادم، بالإضافة إلى ذلك مساعدتهم لإعادة دمجهم بالمجتمع مرة أخرى. هناك الكثير من الأطفال الذين تم إعادتهم للمدرسة مرة أخرى والعيش بسلام في مجتمع خالي من العنف. يشرفني أن أقدم الفيديو الأخير في جولة مهمتنا هذه ومن موقعي من العراق إلى موقعك. شكرا لك.
نعم نداس للشيخوية از شغل موقو كيس مانجمنت إدارة الحالة المنظمة يزدا فرعي شنغال. شغلي ماجي أم دعم نفسي واجتماعي ناجية درجيتكن وعوالي الضحايا وبحالاتي هكا صدمة بالشيبوي النتيجة إبادة وأم وكو كيس مانجمنت أم رابطين حالي خدمات نفسي طبي قانوني هروسا أم محاولات كنا هكا مثل مصدر رزقك يوان جيبوا فرينين أم بدمجين بدورات التدريب مهني جيبا.
أسناديا الياسم أزاش دوميز بومبري أسنها شنقالم حي مصر أصل سالة دست داعش دوم الحمد لله أنها ساتم قالك خوشة وقالك مرتاحة قص كلمة نفعل لي خودة ديسا وكم داكو بابت خوديتين كن يزدات يا باما مساعدة متك كبيش نور أكاوتين يا باما يا كم تشنا بانا مرتاحت بين كم مش ما درك بين خوشة خوش بيرات كن كم تشنا دورة وعالم نهال دست داعش ده بس بقادي هم تشتكي جي نزال نبدي سالن بس از وكا افيت دست داعش ده كتين هواليت ميك كان هانا كي مشروعك كا وكربانا اي خيات كي كا كوافيريز وهواليت خو كتشوبانا ما خوش بيلاج كربا ومساعدة ويجي شمارة يعني نن محتاج تشتكيون وما خوش بيلاد كلمة تفكري إنشي وساكم تشوبانا شغلة كي زوها بالس خو مشروعك تشتكي وساكم در كتبانا
سليمان ديماج قندي حردان اج دست بيغا سي هشت هتا رجع ابرو بريدا ام كاتن دست 11 سي هشت وزيداي بيجم 406 نفريج في قندي حردان كافت دست 11 أزو عائلة كاملة كافت دست 11 ده وبعد يقول الحمد لله شخدي ما فرصة دي أم مشت الأحفر بازا أم قهنا سنة بأهلتي أخو وجندية أخو هفالية أخو الحمد لله شخدي وهذا نقول رجع بروجي كسكي مساعدة ما نقرأ منظمة يزعنا دي تشتيش مرة مطلوب حدا دي ما قودي إيش مرة آنين
Words don't quite convey the impact, dedication, justice, and healing that we just experienced together. Such incredible triumphs that demonstrate what the power of healing can bring to so many lives and generations to come. Thank you to my colleagues, Mario, Esteban, Reem, and Farah for sharing their experiences. I remain in awe of your bravery and commitment to healing and justice for all. And thank you to each and every survivor who has shared their story of courage. As we conclude our mission tour, I will turn it over now to Peter Kovler, co-founder of the Marjorie Kovler Center, for a special presentation of the inaugural Sister Diana Ortiz Award for Courage.
Thank you, Sarita, and what an inspirational mission tour. My name is Peter Kovler, and I am the very proud founder of the Marjorie Kovler Center, named after my late mother. In preparation for tonight, I found myself both reflecting on our history and looking forward towards a future of healing and thriving. The Marjorie Kovler Center has supported thousands of survivors of torture. They have all undoubtedly left a lasting impact on society. Sister Diana was one of those spectacular and inspirational individuals. She was both a survivor of torture and a beneficiary of the Marjorie Kovler Center. So that you can understand a bit more about her, I'd like to read something that she once wrote. When individuals, she said, become the target of political violence, their worlds crumble. The damage done to the basic foundation is so severe that the pillars of one's life come crashing down. There is nothing life-giving left. Trust in oneself, in humanity, and in God is shattered. The survivor feels more kin to the dead than to the living. We are left with fear, guilt, humiliation, shame, nightmares, flashbacks, even hideous memories. This is the survivor's world, a world we wish to flee. In that darkness where so many have stood and continue to stand, there flickers the faint light of a candle, It's called the Marjorie Kovler Center. The center exists as a sanctuary for survivors of torture and for their families. At Kovler, we are lifted when we fall, cared for in our brokenness, empowered to take the most daring of all risks to live. I am humbled to be introducing tonight's inaugural Sister Diana Ortiz Award for Courage. This acknowledgement memorializes Sister Diana's enduring commitment to truth and justice. In that spirit, tonight's award is presented to the Torture, Abolition, and Survivors Support Coalition International, TASC for short, an organization founded by Sister Diana with the hope of speaking for those who have been silenced. Leonce Bimana, Executive Director of TASC, I trust that you will find that tonight's award is a true testament to our shared support of human rights and a remarkable honor to carry forward in your work. And now it is my honor to introduce Leonce.
Thank you so much, Peter. I am pleased to accept the Sister Diana Ortiz Award as the Torture, Abolition, and Survivor Support Coalition International Executive Director. Hundreds of torture survivors who received services from TASC and who call TASC their second home will not be where they are without the idea of Sister Diana Ortiz to create a safe space where survivors feel safe and participate in their own healing process with the support of qualified and well-intentioned staff members, volunteers, interns, and the community. Sister Diana's story is an inspiring story for many survivors. From the torture chamber to becoming human rights advocates and supporting other survivors. Despite all the suffering, humiliation, and attempt to break her soul, she emerged as a leader, a mentor, an inspiration to many in the torture rehabilitation community and survivors, with the only objective in mind to make the world a better place. When asked about what inspired her to start TASC and what was the moment she realized that she has to do it, she responded, I remember survivors I met and talked to would ask, why don't you start an organization for people like us? And though I was quiet and when asked, my thinking was always, what do I know about starting an organization? At the time, like many of them, I was also trying to make sense of my own experience with torture. What astounded me was that I shared so many similar feelings with those I spoke to. Feelings of fear, feelings of aloneness, and a desire to end the torture practice to prevent others from experiencing the trauma. It was as if we were speaking a common language. During the process, I recognized that the practice of torture was widespread across the world. We needed an organization of torture survivors, led by survivors, that could speak about their experiences as they found healing through community. You must remember that at the time, we as survivors were still thinking that if we told anyone what had happened to us, we would not be believed. Many of us still carry that with us today. So starting an organization of torture survivors represented a revolution in our thinking. And from the moment TASC opened its doors, it became a home for survivors, a community in the fullest sense, and we never turned anyone away. That was a statement of Sister Diana on why she started TASC. Every day as I speak to survivors, to TASC members, I'm constantly reminded of how much they learned from Sister Diana's story and courage of not being led by the words of their torturers, who told them that they would no longer express themselves and be useful in the community. Instead, at the example of Sister Diana, they turned that into strength and drive to speak out against torture and seek justice, not only for themselves, but also for other torture survivors around the world. I take this opportunity to thank our beloved Sister Diana Ortiz, who, for inspiring us all to do this work. May his soul rest in peace. In addition, I want to thank the Kovler Center, which supported Sister Diana right after she was tortured and helped her regain strength and start the fight against torture.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Alita Black, and I'm a very joyful and proud member of the Leadership Council of the Marjorie Kovler Center for the Survivors of Torture, a program of the Heartland Alliance. And I am here today to ask you to risk yourself, because we are all on trial right now in these scary times to really show what being an American means. You know, what we are as a citizen, as a nation, as neighbors, what our dreams are, what our values are, what we risk ourselves to achieve, and what we owe one another. And those who come to the Marjorie Kovler Center have risked all that they are to embrace values and courage and vision that we take for granted. And I ask you to think about that. I ask you to stand with me as I and my other Leadership Council members stand with them, to say that we embrace your courage, that we embrace your vision, that we honor your joy, that we laugh with you, that we struggle with you, we stand with you, we revel in your company. And yes, I freely admit this is a tad selfish, because I get much more courage and much more grit and much more joy from those we work with than I think that they could ever get from me. So what I ask all of you to do tonight is to open your wallets the way you open your hearts, and to say to them that, yes, we embrace you, but yes, we support you. And so my partner, Judy, and I offer this challenge to you, that we will match $5,000 that you contribute during this broadcast, and that we will work our damnedest to match every penny that you contribute that exceeds that match. Because we are all on trial to show what we believe, what our nation stands for, and to stand with those who have the courage and the dreams and the grit and the determination to come here and build new lives grounded in what our nation was founded on. So stand with us. Text your contribution to the number that shows up on this screen. And let us show Chicago, let us show the clients of Heartland and Kovler, let us show people all over the world who are watching this what we really mean and what we will risk ourselves to achieve. So please open your wallets. Thanks again for your time. Take care and go forward, and know that we are changing the world.
Thank you, Alita. We do not do this work alone. It's too great a fight for anyone today. We ask for each of you to join us in making our vision a reality. You being here tonight, bearing witness, giving voice to the survivors of torture and trauma, and supporting them on their journey to healing is so powerful. It's important and it is transformative. Going forward, it's my hope that Heartland Alliance International and the Kovler Center will not only continue the caring aid that has made such a difference in the life of Sister Diana Ortiz and to so many others, but we will also continue to be the voice for people we cannot treat, people who cannot physically get to us, but whose suffering we completely understand. Please remember that you can donate online or text POH GIVE to 71777 to give directly in support of our work to ensure healing and justice for all. Before we officially conclude the event, I want to invite you all to stay tuned for a very special reading of Articles 1 and 5 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, featuring our amazing staff, volunteers, and former clients. Thank you so much.
All human beings
are born free and equal
in dignity and rights.
They are endowed with reason
and conscience
and should act toward one another
in a spirit of humanhood.
No one shall be
subject to torture
or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading
treatment or punishment